So this graphic here presents a summary timeline of the starting from the Treaty of Rome from the 1957 and moving on the 20 recent years of long history of gender and research policies at EU level. You will see that the first EC communication on women in science dates back to 1999. And the following 7 years were featured by the constitutions of the NGO European Platform Women in Science and the Helsinki Group. In that phase, emphasis about gender equality was given to the low rate of female representation among European scientists and the acknowledged need for setting up gender disaggregated statistics on EU research, which led to the most known C-Figures report series in the following period from 2002 to 2006, actually. And the Framework Program 6. Within that framework program of the European Commission, gender equality was considered to be achieved not only via an increased women's participation to scientific research, but also through the integration of gender in research content. And all applicants to the FP6 program were requested to prepare a gender action plan. This measure proved not to work due to the lack of knowledge and expertise from the side of the research performing organizations and of course of the applicants of the framework program. So it was removed in the framework program 7. So that increasingly the focus was placed on the need for spreading awareness and building the capacity of the so-called NCPs, the national contact points, and research organizations on the topic. Projects such as the Gender and Research Training Program and Toolkit went to this direction. Between FP7 and the Horizon 2020 period, institutional change and integration of gender in research content were proposed as a new policy tools and the means to achieve gender equality in science. So several projects were funded with this scope, including Gender Equality Academy in that matter. In terms of goals, from an initial focus on representation of women in science, gender equality policies are using an increasingly complex framework. So the highlighted policy goals reflect the current so-called 3 era priorities on gender equality in research, all of them on the agenda. Policy tools have moved from measures aiming at what we call fixing the women via individual support measures to actually fixing the institutions by promoting institutional change. We'll go through the concept of institutional change a little bit later towards the end of the first day, and we'll go thoroughly during the following days. As far as arguments are actually concerned, it has been noted how THI are getting closer to an economic rationale and are increasingly expanding from scientific research as such to broader innovation. The concept of intersectionality is also gradually more and more prominent in EU gender in research policies. So as anticipated, gender equality in research is set as one of the 6 core priorities for the European research area. 3 sub-priorities are defined, which are also policy goals. And the first 2 are related, the foster gender equality in scientific careers and the ensure gender balance in decision making, are related to human resources management at academic and research institutions. And then the third one entails the way scientific research itself is operated therefore, the integration of the gender dimension into the content of research and innovation. So in the ERA roadmap of 2005 to 2020, member states and associated countries should develop policies on gender equality in research performing organizations, and of course to monitor the effectiveness of those policies. And then RPO should in turn review and enhance their policies for gender equality in research and ensure their implementation. And moving forward, in something that it is a very recent development that you might heard, gender equality plan for Horizon Europe is actually a precondition in a way. And the recommended areas to be covered that are suggested here are listed in the slide you can see. It's work-life balance and organizational culture, gender balance in leadership and decision-making, it's gender equality in recruitment and career progression, the integration of the gender dimension into research and teaching content, and measures against gender-based violence, including sexual harassment. So what we know now from what has been published from the European Commission is that if an organization wants to join, they should have the minimal requirements, what they called the building blocks of a gender equality plan. So it means that an organization to join needs to have a formal document published on the institution's website and signed by the top management, needs to have dedicated resources, commitment of resources and expertise in gender equality to implement the plan. And it needs to have data collection and monitoring tools in its institution. It means that it needs to gather sex and gender disaggregated data on its personnel and students for the establishment concerned, and annual reporting based on the indicators that have been set at the beginning of the gender equality plan. Then, of course, continuous training is a prerequisite, awareness raising, training on gender equality and unconscious gender biases for staff and decision makers. Of course, some recent updates on the eligibility criterion. There is a transition period, as far as we know. The call for proposals with the deadline of 2021 will be retroactivity in a way. It will be applicable for 2021 calls, but with deadline in 2022 to have set the gender equality plan. So that wraps up actually how is the current EU policy framework and some basic concepts.